a weird disconnection. So
Weird indeed.
let's see what we have. Yes, what we have on the YouTubes to see if we can reconnect people.
We should have a public live stream URL somewhere now that we've got this live again.
Nope.
Yeah. If you go to the RHEL YouTube channel, it's on there. I'm going to grab it. I'll throw it in the old chat.
There we go.
Scott, we thought today's episode was going to be easy.
We did. We were like, yay. What could possibly go wrong with our live show?
We're just going to talk about editors. It'll be easy.
All right.
We got 9 viewers already. Should I go ahead and get moving with the demo, or we want to wait another minute?
Give me 1 second to post in the other. Oh, live event chat is over. Chat's no longer available. All right, I say we go for it.
I threw a message in the old chat. I don't know if it got through or not because the event was over, but at any rate. Okay. I think I was done with Emacs, as everybody should be. No, I shouldn't say that. All right, so you have options for editors. There are some things on your system that will automatically use your default editor, right? So how do you set the default editor? That's what I figure is a great thing.
What is the default editor?
That'll depend on your Linux distribution, right? On RHEL, it's Vim, which is probably why I think it's Vim all these years.
Also, general Red Hat, right? So like Fedora, I think uses Vim as the default, and CentOS uses Vim as the default.
But I know that distributions that favor the easier text editors like Nano, they set their default to Nano. So the question is, well, how do we set it? So first of all, here's an example. I know this editor is called this tool is called VIPW, which is meant to be a tool you can use to edit the Etsy password, and it'll make sure that you don't, like, it'll do some syntax validation when you save it. Same thing if you do like, what is it, sudo -e?
Or vi-sudo?
Or there you go, vi-sudo. That'll let you automatically open up the sudoers file and make edits, and then it'll do like syntax validation when you save it. That's what VIPW does. Now, in this case, as you'd expect from the name, the tool VIPW opened up my password file in Vim, right? Let's go ahead and quit that. If I want to change that, there's an environment variable called editor inside of your. So I'm going to change it inside of my bash RC, because then what it'll do is every time I log in, it'll set editor. Now, there's other ways you can set environment variables. This is just a quick and easy way to get it done for the demo. We're just going to say export editor equals Nano. I am not going to set it to Emacs. Sorry.
Yeah. So a couple of things on this. One is you probably want to use the fully qualified path name.
Yes. Let's see what that is.
The other thing is instead of bash RC, I would put it in bash profile.
Yes, you can do that as well. And if you want to set this globally for every user, you can do it inside of Etsy profile.
Well, yes, but for you, I would put it in your .bash _ profile, because RCs are for running commands and profiles are for setting variables.
That is not. I literally just copied it to the clipboard. I must have copied it to the. Hey, cool! It saved it between sessions. Must have been in the Vim clipboard. Okay, so now we're going to save. Now, of course, that doesn't go into effect immediately. I can log out and log back in again, or I can just use source bash profile. And now if I did export, we'll see, well, export, I could, yeah, let's
Why don't you just
just
do an
use grep.
echo? Just use an echo.
Because I like typing longer commands.
Killing me.
So there it is. Editor has been Nano. You're right. We can do echo dollar editor, and there it is, bin Nano. Now, if I do something like VIPW again, now it opened it up in Nano. You can see right there. You can tell by the little thing at the bottom here, the footer that tells us how to do things, that this is clearly Nano, and of course it says Nano up at the top. So that's how you change your default editor, right? And that's useful if you don't like whatever default editor came with the distribution you're using.
Yeah, you came for editors and you got shell preference changing too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that's let's see if we can break Restream again by like turning off my share. What do you think?
You should just resize the window some more. That seemed to do a really good job.
I should. Let's do that.
For no apparent reason. So we talked a little bit about some commands to get started with on your editors of 3 different editors. And then you showed us how to change our default editor. So when we used a program that invoked an editor as part of its execution, it would invoke the one we preferred. But why would we use one over another? Like, why should I choose Nano versus Emacs versus Vim?
So that I figure we'll get into. Well, go ahead. I guess we can get into that now, unless you have some introductory stuff to do first. Like, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe, folks. Do the YouTube things.
That's right. Do the YouTube things. So I think editor choice is largely driven by 1, personal preference. 2, learning curve.
Yeah.
And 3, and this is the one people don't think about until it's too late. What's going to be there? So,
yeah.
Nate, I'm sure that you didn't really want to start with VI when you were a young IT professional, because you then had to learn all of these commands and commit them to memory so that you could be minimally proficient with it.
Right.
And
right.
In my experience, it takes about 13 commands to be barely proficient, and probably about 30 to actually like do really well.
Yeah.
But you're already a new
fair.
Linux professional and you're learning like ls and df and like all these other commands. And then you have to learn a whole set just for editing files.
And especially if you're using a more advanced editor, you know, like I said, Vim was the one I learned. But if whoever's mentoring you is like, you must learn Emacs, I pity you, because it just feels so much harder.
Well,
but if that's the editor I've been using for 30 years, then it would feel like second nature, because that's the one that you learn. That's when you chose to learn.
Yeah, but like when you're first starting out, like why should you choose one or the other? And I think that the overwhelming reason why you would choose VI is because it's always there. So it's there on other Unixes or Linuxes. It will be there. For Red Hat distros, if you are operating in, say, the rescue environment to troubleshoot and fix a downed box, VI is going to be in that rescue environment. Emacs is not included in that rescue environment.
Right.
So, which one you should choose, I think, is largely determined by what is the area in which you operate, your job function, and what's going to be there when things are abnormal. As you mentioned, Emacs is, I think, largely driven by graphical users these days. So if you are a workstation user, Emacs is great. It's got like pull down menus. There's like little widgets you can click to make things different indentation and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And there's apparently super advanced stuff you can do. Like you can actually script within Emacs using Lisp, if I recall correctly. So if the editor
Maybe.
doesn't do a thing, you can make it do things by writing writing code inside of your editor. And also, the other big thing I hear people talk about with Emacs is that there's so many things it can do that once you have it open, especially in a world where you're working in a terminal, right? You don't have to exit to go do something else. You can just like call up a shell from within, or you can whatever. Now you can do that in Vim too, but that's what I hear from diehard Emacs users. So that's kind of one of the big things that they like so much about it.
Yeah, I think the thing that ultimately like gets the Emacs folks is workflow, right? So if you are writing software, Emacs was one of the first editors that supported things like syntax highlighting, auto indentation, because that's important for languages like Python.
Yeah,
It was the first editor to really kind of support all of that, and so that won a lot of people early on because that helped their workflow for their main job, which was writing software. But VI Improved also now has all of those things, right? Vim has all of those things. And Nate, you start off the stream with this. You said VI and Vim can be used interchangeably. I think that's largely a true statement, especially in Linux. That may not be a true statement for legacy Unix environments, where they may actually use straight up VI instead of Vim, which means things like arrow keys may not work, or
right.
copy and paste with the mouse may be weird. So a little bit of like hedging on that one. But yeah, so like which one you should pick, I think is largely determined by what is it you're working on. Are you willing to like dedicate some time to something like Vim or Emacs to learn some additional command lexicon? And when things go awry, do you have your preferred editor available? Because you certainly don't want to be learning those 13 VI commands under duress of trying to fix a box.
Right, right. And there's actually a question in chat which is kind of directly related to this. I'm gonna see if I can show it on the screen without breaking restream. So is there a way that we can change the editor in rescue mode? Right. And I think the short answer to that is it's hard to change what editor is available in rescue mode. And I think well, I know for RHEL anyway, in rescue mode you will have vi/vim. I don't know if Nano's there. It might be. If it is,
Maybe.
then you could theoretically use Nano. You may have to call it directly. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. You may have to call it directly, or you could change the editor like I just did, but then that's going to require like bringing your session back or bringing your profile back in to set that environment variable. However, if you're in a rescue environment and your goal is to like mount your system partitions, once the system partitions are mounted, if you're like chi rooting into that environment, then everything that's normally on your system should be present. So there's some caveats there. What's available in rescue mode? Well, rescue mode itself is going to have a very small set of commands. But once you have your system mounted, you could theoretically use the tools that are on that system's disk, as long as the disk isn't the thing you're trying to fix.
Yeah, and just to like clarify, what is rescue mode? Because we've been talking about it. So
Right.
rescue mode is a initial RAM disk environment that's loaded into memory that then allows you to access other components of your system from this kind of like pre-formatted or pre-made in-memory operating system. So it has a
Right.
kernel and some binaries, and it has its own file system layout, but that's all built into its initial RAM disk image. And so
Right.
the more stuff we put into rescue mode, the bigger that RAM disk image becomes, which is why we choose to not put a lot of stuff in there. So
Right.
we want to put in tools that get you to troubleshooting and accessing your regular system, because then your regular system can provide additional supplementary tools once you've got access to it through file system mounting or whatever else. So that's what rescue is. And so it's a constrained environment because we don't want to balloon up the size of the initial RAM disk that we use for making it.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, I think that's why you would choose, or some of the selection criteria of which one you should choose. What are you comfortable with? What are you going to be doing? is it going to be there in all the places that you need it to be, so that when something goes awry, you can still use the thing that you're familiar with.
Right. Right. And since such a big part of building a preference, which is part of how you decide which editor you want to use, is seeing how an editor works, I've prepared a series of demos on each of the core editors we talked about in the critical path. Basically, we're going to do the same task with all three of them. And that task is I've made a copy of my SSH config. We're going to go in and we're going to turn on, or no, we're going to turn off password authentication inside of the configuration file. That's my only task, which means we're going to have to open a text file. We're going to have to find the line we're looking for. We're going to have to make some changes to that line. And then just for fun, we're going to save it to a different file name than the one we opened, because that happens sometimes. You open up a file, you make a change. You don't want to leave the editor and lose your change, but maybe you have to go check on something. So you want to save it to a separate file, or maybe you forgot to make a backup of the file before you get in there. So we're going to show you how to save it, to essentially do a save out to a new file. So we're going to start with Nano because that's kind of the easiest. And you'll see I have the SSH config right here in my home directory. And this is going to be pretty much as simple as you're going to expect it to be, right? We opened up Nano. We now have an open buffer. It opens up the contents of the file. We can just use the arrow keys to go find the option that we care about. But Nano does have a search. So let's go ahead and use the search. If you look at the bottom here in that footer, you can see it says Command or Control F will find where is, which is essentially find. We're going to do Control F. And then we're going to type in what we're looking for.
And Nate, one of the things I noticed is over on the right-hand side of your window, do you see the little like gray arrows?
Yeah, that means there's word
so
wrap
by
to
default,
be done.
Yeah, it says that the line like extends past what you can see. So you could use things like arrow keys to scan, to like go down that line if you wanted to. But
right.
Anyway, sorry. Continue. We're going to search for something.
No problem. No problem. Okay, so what we're looking for is there's a directive in the SSH config called password authentication. I believe this is case sensitive, so that's why I'm doing a camel case here. We're just going to search for the word password auth, and you can see it highlighted it there for a moment, and it put us on the line where it says password authentication. Yes, but it's commented out because password authentication turned on is the default for SSHD. So it helpfully puts it here in the file, but it comments it out. So if we want to change it, all we have to do is uncomment the line. All I did was hit the backspace key. Then we're going to go to the end of the line, and we're going to change that yes to a no. And then to save the file as a new file name, if you hit Control, I think it's O, right? Yes, Control O is write out. And then it just asks us, what's the new file that we want to save it as? So we're going to call it sshd-config.nano. And I didn't have to do anything weird to get to that box. And just put the cursor right there for me. I'm going to hit enter. And there we go. Save the file as a different name. Yes. Now, if I just hit Control X to quit, it also would have said, do you want to save the changes? And then I could have put in that file name there and told it yes, and it would have saved. Okay, now we're going to hit Control X. And it's going to quit without any kind of error because we've already saved our file. And you can see right there, we have sshd-config.nano. If I did a grep for on, you can see right there, password authentication, no, right? It saved it in the file. So you can see Nano, right? That was pretty easy. Finding the line that we were looking for might have been the most complicated thing because we had to figure out what the search command was, but it was right there in the footer. We just had to find the right key combination, and then we just typed in the thing we're looking for. If we didn't know it was case sensitive, maybe that could have tripped us up. But most things in Linux are case sensitive, so usually that's my default mode. I just assume everything is case sensitive, and that way it doesn't trip me up as easily. So the only caveat I see with Nano, aside from the fact that it is kind of limited in the amount of like power you have at your disposal, is those control keys can sometimes mess around with whatever environment you're in, right? So maybe your operating system intercepts Control X because it's actually the cut command, right? A lot of terminal emulators account for that, and Control X is not the copy or cut command, but what if it is on the system that you're on, and that could be an issue, right? So it's just something to think about. Or Scott, you brought up when we were planning the show, Tmux. What if you're working inside of Tmux? I have no idea how Nano behaves inside of Tmux, but I know Tmux uses control commands to do a lot of things. So is that going to be a problem? I don't know. It's hard to say. I shouldn't say it's hard to say. I haven't tested it. Maybe someone else has. So that's Nano. Do we have any questions about Nano before I move on to our favorite editor? All right. The next one on the list is Vim. And like I said, on RHEL, Vi and Vim, or Vi, however you want to pronounce it, are pretty much interchangeable. So we're just going to use, not Sim, Vim, and we're going to open up this SSHD config file, right? Really similar to how we did this with Nano. We just replaced Nano with Vim. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the file because it remembers where I was from when I was planning my demo, and I don't want to cheat. So I'm back at the start of the file. To search forward, I think there's more than one way to skin this cat in Vim. The way I do it, go ahead.
So we noted last time that Nano kind of pushed those things that overwrapped your terminal window and just like sent them over to the side and gave you a little arrow.
Yep.
Whereas here, we can actually see it line wraps within the size of your terminal.
Yep.
So Nate is like moving to the side and just like automatically. Yep.
Yeah.
So a slight difference, right? And if Nate made his window wider, which would, please don't do that because then we'll jack with our layout. But if Nate made his window wider, it would actually be on one line. All right. Sorry. Continue finding text in the file.
So the way I do this is you just type : which puts you in command mode, / and then the thing you're searching for, right? So in the, what was it? Password auth, right? Now there's also like an interactive search. I think if you just were to hit / without the : and then it'll actually actively start searching for you, right? If I'm not doing that right. Yeah. So / right, and you can see it's highlighting as we go. So that's another way to get this done. And now if I hit enter, it'll put me on that line because I know that is the thing I was looking for. Now with Vim, there's a couple ways to move around and whatnot. I could just use the arrow keys, right? Move around here. But part of the power of Vim is its shortcuts, right? So it put me right here at the beginning. So I want to delete back one. I could go into insert mode and hit backspace, or if I hit the letter D and then the left arrow, it'll delete the character that's to the left of where my cursor is, right? I could have also used some kind of a search and replace command to remove the £sign at the beginning of the line. That's just kind of the power of Vim. Okay, and since I'm still in, since I'm not in insert mode, now I could either go to insert mode and go to the end of the line, or I can use the capital A to go to the end of the line and immediately go into insert mode, right? A, I think, stands for append, which, right, puts you at the end of the line and then puts you into insert mode. I don't want to append, though. I want to just delete what's at the end, and then I want to change it to no, right? I could have done like a search and replace to change yes to no, right? There's lots of ways to get this done. Now I hit escape. It takes me back out of insert mode. I hit : to go back to the command line at the bottom there. And now I want to write out my changes, which is the letter W. But remember, we want to change the file name. So if I hit W and then a space, and then the file name that I want to save as, sshd-config.vim, and I hit enter, then it's going to save it as the new file name that I just wrote out. Now, here's where things get a little bit weird with Vim. Remember on Nano, after we did that, it remembered that we saved our changes. It did make us confirm that we wanted to change the name of the file. Vim didn't make us do that. It just saved it. It assumed that we knew what we were doing. But now if I try to quit, it's like, hey, you didn't save your file. But I did save my file. It's just that I saved it as a different file name. It's just one of the nuances between Vim and Nano. What's the side eye for there, Scott?
Yeah, this is where we get into like, what do you mean by saved a file?
Right,
because
exactly.
Did you save the file? I saw you write out a new file.
Exactly.
But this file you were editing, you did not save.
Just a nuanced difference of Vim versus Nano. Nano assumed that because you saved it, that's what you intended to do. It doesn't have to prompt you to save. Vim is like, wait, you saved it to a different file. If you expected it to be in the file you're editing, it's not there, and that's why it's warning you.
Yeah.
So I have to hit enter to continue. And then remember, like I said before, if I go quit and then exclamation point, what that'll do is it'll quit the editor without saving the changes to the file that's open, right? But remember, we did make the change and we saved it inside of this other file. So if we do the same thing as we did before, .vim, there we go. Password authentication is set to no. So it did save the change, but it didn't save it inside the file we had open.
So we did have a little chat in chat. Can you open that file back up for me, Nate? The original? Yeah. So Craft Z7T said, hey, when I search for something, it highlights it. And when I open another file, it still keeps the highlighting.
Yeah.
So to turn off highlighting, you do a colon, no HL.
Yeah, so here's my dirty secret.
No, because now if you open up another file
and it has that mash of keys in it, it'll highlight it. Yes, I know.
Just do a colon no HL. And then it's a single command. You don't have to type random characters. Nope. Killing me.
Okay, so let's slash. All right. So colon no HL. Just like that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And now if you exit the file and come back in, it will not be highlighted. If you open up another file that happen to have that string, it will not be highlighted because you turned off the highlighting that was active. That said, if you search for a thing, it's going to highlight the new thing. So no HL is how you turn it off, but you would have to do that every time.
Now, I believe
there's a macro or something else.
Yeah, the search highlighting can be disabled completely in your vimrc if you don't want it to highlight at all. You just want it to go to the occurrence.
Actually, open up your SSHD config for a second. If you do a colon set, no HL.
Nope.
There's a setting that you could change that will basically like disable highlighting for syntax, because that's what I mean. Difference between VI and Vim. Right? Vim does highlighting. VI, nope.
Yeah. VI is very basic. It's just a monochrome text editor. Doesn't have the syntax highlighting or auto indentation, things like that. So I did for a long time. I did all of my script writing and whatnot in Vim. I had no other like visual editor. Everything was done on server in Vim. It's it's not a bad development environment. If you're working on something that has a million files, it's a lot more difficult. But if you have like a single script that you're trying to write, it works really well. Okay.
All right. So sorry, I derailed you on Vim for a minute, but we're going to also do this in Emacs.
I mean, it's a great editor, right?
And love Emacs.
Again, the default. So it's good to know Vim. It's good to get really familiar with Vim, even if it's just those basic commands that Scott was talking about earlier. Just like quick discussion about Vim. Vim does definitely feel more complicated than Nano, but it can be more efficient because, those commands that we were using, they feel very esoteric. But once you learn them, you figure out how to get to those commands without having to move your hands around the keyboard all that much, right? So, and even if you're trying to move around the screen without using the arrow keys, you can use letters on your keyboard instead, right? I forget which letters they are because I always use the arrow keys, but you can use letters to move around. That way you never have to move your hands from the home row. You just keep typing and you can do things in Vim. So
H, K, J, and L.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to say that on stream without being certain. It should be W, A, S, and D. Why isn't it those, huh? That's what everybody uses for arrow keys anymore.
Because VI was written in like the...
VI was written before that was common.
Yes, W, A, S, and D was like a gaming thing for moving around.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And, Vim has a lot of power for like text manipulation and things. I've never seen somebody use like a regular expression in Nano to make like large en masse edits in a file. Maybe it's possible, but I don't know that it is, right? So that's something I've done a ton in Vim, and I was thinking about cooking up a demo for that. Have a bunch of data that we wanted to replace a bunch of stuff in, but I figured we'd have enough to talk about with these 3 editors, especially since I'm about to talk about Emacs next, and there's a really good chance that I'm going to get stuck in Emacs. So, all right, any questions before I go? I see there's comments about arrow keys and whatnot in the chat. Okay, so with Emacs, we already covered earlier about the -NW flag, so I'm not going to go in depth on that again. Emacs -NW and then SSHD config, and this should open up in the editor just like the other ones that we've done already. And to Scott's point earlier about the word wrapping, this appears to be doing the word wrapping for us as well, except notice it's putting at the end of the line here a slash, just like you would see in Bash when you were trying to go to the next line for, to continue a command on the next line. So that's a little different, right? So you can actually see a visual indicator that there is a new line there, or there's not a new line, that it's wrapped instead of that being a new line, which is sometimes important, right? You don't know if it's a new line or not. Okay, now we can, of course, search within Emacs. It wouldn't be the awesome thing that people love if there was no search feature. In Emacs, it's Control S to search, which makes sense, right? The search starts with S. All right. And then once I hit the Control S, did it do the thing? Yeah, Control S to search. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's why. And this works sort of like the interactive search that I showed you as my second search example when I did it in Vim, how I started typing and it took me right to that line as I was typing the search command. So now that we found it, we're just going to hit enter, and that's going to put us on that line that we were on. Now, again, Emacs is a little bit different than Vim in that I am already in a mode where I could change this line, right? I can just move around with the arrows and then I could make changes. But since in Vim we used special commands to get to the beginning and the end of the line, I thought we would do that in Emacs as well. So with Emacs, remember, let's see, with Vim we used Control or Shift A to get to the end of the line. In this case, Control A gets you to the beginning of a line, Control A. And now we can just use the delete key to delete that pound sign, right? Because we're going to uncomment the line. And then Control E gets us to the end of the line. And then we can delete or backspace yes and change it to no. Again, I'm sure there's some way I could have used like fancy search and replace foo to get this done without physically changing it like a heathen, but here we are. Okay, now comes the fun part. I've made the change I want to make. Now I need to save to a new file name. And the way to do that is you do Control X and then, what was it? Control W. And now it asks me, where do I want to write the file? It doesn't pre-fill anything for the file name, except it puts the directory. The directory in this case is my home directory. I don't know if that's always the default when I'm doing a save as, or if that's because that's the directory I'm in. I didn't test that. So we're going to call it sshd underscore config dot emacs. Okay, then we're going to hit enter, and there we go. It says root sshd config dot emacs. Now all I have to do is exit, right? Because we're already done. We hit Control X again, and then Control C, and then it leaves. There we go. So yeah, now we made the change. We'll do the same thing we did before. And there we go. We can see it's changed to no. So you can tell I literally have the demo written out right in front of me here, and I can tell you that the number of steps it took me to do this in Vim and the number of steps it took me to do it in Emacs are very similar. The only real difference is the slightly nuanced differences in the way that one worked versus the other, and the key commands that I had to use. So you could argue that from a strictly editing text files perspective, Emacs and Vim are actually both kind of equally complicated, I would say. But yeah, you have those control keys, which has the same limitation I was talking about earlier with Nano, where you have to reach down to get the control key. There's control alternate keys you have to hit sometimes. So that can sometimes get tiring. It makes you move your hands around the keyboard a lot more. I've told
Yeah,
the story in the past about my old boss who had a pedal hooked up to his computer that would be a control key so that he could use his foot to hit the control key, which I thought was funny because he was an Emacs user. But anyway, you're about to say something.
Yeah, when you look at Emacs commands on cheat sheets and whatnot, there's like C and a character combination or M and a character combination.
Yes.
Yeah, so M stands for meta. So there's the control character and the meta character, and the meta character for Emacs is usually escape. So if it's control X meta X, it'd be control X escape X.
Okay,
right?
and
It's
again, this is my own unfamiliarity with Emacs. One of the things I was reading online had referred to Alt as the meta key, so that's why I was saying Alt. But if you're saying it's escape, then it's escape.
It's configurable,
right?
So maybe
meta is whatever you want it to be.
Well, and that's true for control, right? You could actually make the control key something different if you wanted it in your
like a foot pedal,
config, like a foot pedal. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's kind of my remarks on Emacs. Like I said, it's I guess if you get fluent with it, if you're familiar with it and you like those features, then it can be a really good editor. I never really got fluent with it. I never saw a reason to, because everything I've ever wanted to do, I could do with Vim. So, and we're good with that. So, all right, that's the end of my demo. Do we have any questions? Don't ask anything deep about Emacs because I won't have an answer.
So Rick was actually pointing out that people's default editors, you want to set them to a fully qualified path name. But what I found interesting was Rick said user bin Nano, user bin Vim, or user bin VI. And before the show, we had been talking about user bin VI. Because what is user bin VI, Nate?
I think it's just a symlink to Vim, isn't it? Or it's actually just Vim minimal, I think.
Yeah, it's Vim minimal on Red Hat.
I clicked in the wrong window. I almost messed up the whole stream.
It's from using your foot pedal to do all the clicking.
Man, if I could type bin.
So it's not a symlink. No, but if you do a RPM QF on user bin VI, right, it's provided by the Vim minimal.
There you go.
The Vim minimal RPM. So
I thought once Vim Enhanced was installed, it became a symlink, but you are correct. Obviously, you can see right there.
But the fact that I use VI all the time. I don't use Vim when typing on the command line. So I don't get all the niceties of Vim Enhanced. But that's okay.
Again, muscle memory. When my brain says editor, my fingers type Vim.
Yeah, you don't know any pain until you've actually written hundreds or thousands of lines of C code using VI. Yeah, good times.
I've written a whole lot of Perl and PHP in Vim. I'll say that, like a lot.
Yeah, me as well. All right, so I think that runs us off all of our topics today.
I think it does.
But we have a what we're doing next, although we won't be here next week.
Right. Next week, we're both going to hopefully be traveling for work unless the snowpocalypse comes and we're all snowed in.
Yeah. But so next week, because we are traveling for work, we will not be doing Into the Terminal because Nate and I will be either in airports or on planes. So it'll be the next week after that. And Nate, I've forgotten what our topic was, but we've picked it.
We did. I had it in my head while I was planning today's, and now I forget what it was already. We wrote it down somewhere, I promise.
We did. Did we make an episode guide? I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. Now we're going to forget what it was, and next week we're going to be like, what was it again?
Man. Well, Wilson knows. Thankfully, Wilson can tell us if we're too inept at remembering it ourselves.
He'll keep us in line.
Yeah.
Wilson
For those of
Wilson
you who
is
don't know-
the responsible for the short edits you guys get when we're not doing live streams. So you can thank Wilson. Wilson's a good guy.
Wilson is indispensable to our team.
Indispensable.
Yes, indubitably.
Live stream from the plane, because that wouldn't go terribly. Why is there a screaming baby?
Latency?
Yeah, right. You thought restream was tricky today?
Oh man, that would be terrible.
Now it bothers me that I can't remember what it was. I literally had it in my brain earlier today because I thought that was going to be today's, and then I'm like, oh no, that's right, editors is today.
Well, Nate, if we did live stream from a plane, it would be like this, right?
Yeah, right. Out the window.
Terrible. No, I was using my phone.
Oh, I see what you mean. Right. Yeah, I don't think my laptop would fit on a tray table. It's too big.
Not anymore. Not with airlines today. So next week, taking the week off because we're working on other things. Week after that, we remembered to make an episode. We just forgot what it is, but we know it. We've already started talking about demos and stuff. We just, neither one of us can remember at the moment.
We got to start writing this in the episode guide before we move away from our planning meeting, because that's exactly where we discussed this and then didn't write it down.
Well, you know,
it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Why plan things when you can fly by the seat of your pants? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it signed me out of the doc we were working on too. Otherwise I'd maybe be able to get it quick.
All right. So don't forget to like and subscribe so we can make more seat of our pants content or restream broken content.
No, this stuff is all super planned. I mean, we planned it a week in advance.
That's right. I mean, that's how we go. We don't just do it live. We do it live with almost no planning.
It was bash syntax.
Bash. That's right. So
like bash expansions, like curly braces and brackets and double brackets.
Square bracket. Yeah.
Yeah, we decided that deserved a little more effort to make sure we got all the demos right. That's why we didn't do it this week. There we go. That's next week's episode. See that?
Yeah. And in chat, Matt Shedler Witt noted that I have green outside my window. That's because those are magnolia trees, and magnolia trees are deciduous or evergreen. So they're always green like pine trees, which will be really fun when they get covered in ice.
But your weather is generally more favorable than it is for me up here in the north.
That's true, except in the summertime when it's really hot. So until next time, thank you for watching in the terminal and joining us, especially for the last 5 minutes of random banter that we had. And
the 10 minutes of us trying to figure out why Restream died.
Yes, exactly. So next time, bash syntax weirdnesses, where we talk about all kinds of weird syntax things with bash and what one does versus another. And so yeah, 2 weeks. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great one, folks.